The film begins in the year 1858 in Texas, during a time when slavery is prevalent. The Speck brothers are transporting slaves when they encounter the great doctor, King Schultz. He introduces himself and tells them that he wants to buy a slave from the Caricon Plantation, indicating that he is interested in Django. Schultz asks Django if he knows the Brittle brothers, to which Django replies that he does, as they used to supervise the plantation. Schultz offers to buy Django, but the Speck brothers refuse. In response, Schultz kills one of them and shoots the horse of the other brother, causing him to fall. He then states that he will buy Django. Before leaving, he gives the remaining slaves a choice. Either they can save the man under the horse or free themselves by killing him and burying him to escape. Naturally, they choose the latter and kill the man. They then set out for the town of Daughtry, where people are shocked to see a black man riding a horse. The bar owner flees upon seeing Django enter. Schultz offers a drink to Django and reveals that he is not a dentist but a bounty hunter, which means the state places a monetary reward on a person's head, and it is his job to track that person down, kill them, and bring them to the authorities to claim the reward. He informs Django that he is looking for the Brittle brothers, but does not know what they look like. Once Schultz kills all three brothers, he will grant Django his freedom, along with $75 for each head. The sheriff shows up, demanding they leave the bar, but before he can finish, Schultz draws a small pistol from his arm and kills the sheriff in front of the town. They enter the bar again until the marshal and his men arrive, at which point Schultz proclaims that as a representative of the U.S. judicial system, he cannot be killed in the street without a trial, as the law dictates. He then reveals that the sheriff is actually a wanted criminal and presents a warrant confirming his words. They collect the reward and leave the town. Schultz asks Django what he plans to do once he gains his freedom and has $75. Django tells him that he intends to rescue his wife, Broomhilda, who was sold by the elderly Caricon, separating them. Schultz offers to help Django find out who bought her through the slave trade records. Schultz presents a plan where he will take on the role of a wealthy servant at Caricon's plantation, with Django's jobs being to identify the Brittle brothers among the other slaves. When they arrive at the plantation, the other slaves are baffled by the sight of a well-dressed black man on horseback. They meet Mr. Bell, who expresses his disapproval of a black man riding a horse on his land. Schultz convinces him that Django is a free man and is welcomed into Bell's home. A female slave shows Django around the plantation, and he asks her if she knows the Brittle brothers. She points him in their direction, and Django remembers them well because they had tortured him and his wife before. He seeks out Roger and John and kills them. Schultz kills Ellis from a distance as he tries to escape on horseback. They inform Mr. Bell that the men he had were criminals wanted by the law, presenting him with a warrant that upholds their claim. However, Bell is not willing to let it go and decides to attack Schultz and Django at night with the plantation's workers. But they set a trap, blowing up Bell's vehicle, allowing them to escape. Instead of trying to kill Bell, Schultz gives Django his rifle, telling him to try to kill Bell himself. Django discovers he has a talent for shooting, managing to shoot Bell clean off his horse. Time comes for Schultz to fulfill his promise to free Django, allowing him to search for his wife, but he offers Django a partnership until the end of winter, after which he will free him and help him find his wife. They agree and prepare for their journey as bounty hunters. Django succeeds in his first operation, keeping the wanted poster for a man named Smitty B. Call as his first kill. He trains more with Schultz, and after a bountiful winter, they head to Mississippi to search the slave records until they find Broomhilda, discovering that she has been sold to Calvin Candy, who owns the fourth largest cotton plantation in the area. Schultz suggests that if he approaches Calvin to buy one of his slaves, Calvin will refuse. They cannot simply kidnap her, or they would be criminals. The only option left is for Schultz to introduce himself as an investor in Mandingo fighting, a deadly sport involving black slaves. Django will act as the expert who selects the appropriate fighter for Schultz to purchase. They meet the illustrious Mr. Calvin Candy, who is taken by Schultz's offer of $12,000 for a fighter Django deems worthy. Candy invites them to his plantation, Candyland, where they meet Steve, the head servant, who despises any black person, despite his own racial background. Schultz requests a particular slave, but she is being punished and locked in a box due to her escape attempt. After freeing and cleaning her up, she is sent to Schultz's room. She meets Schultz, who tells her that they have a mutual friend and that they have come to rescue her. She turns and sees Django, her husband, fainting on the spot. They gather for lunch and discuss the trade of fighting slaves, while Stephen notices the connection between Django and Broomhilda, asking if she knew him before, but she denies it. The negotiations proceed to the pricing of Calvin's fighters, and they settle on the price of $12,000 for one fighter. Schultz requests 5 days to prepare the sales contract with his lawyer, But Calvin and Stephen stir Django's suspicion by flaunting Broomhilda to provoke him. Stephen assures Calvin of Django and Broomhilda's underlying relationship. They plot to meet in Calvin's office. Calvin confronts them upon returning, threatening them and demanding they keep their hands on the table as he disarms them. He presents Broomhilda, continuing to threaten them by stating he will sell her for the same price of $12,000, and that if they do not purchase her, he reserves the right to crush her skull, as he is her owner. Reluctantly, Schultz pays him the $12,000, and after the transaction concludes, Calvin insists Schultz shake his hand, which he refuses, stating that he has no desire to shake his hand or see him again. Calvin persists, so Schultz retaliates by shooting him in the heart. However, Butch retaliates, overturning his rifle and killing Dr. King Schultz. A massacre occurs at Candy's estate, resulting in Butch's death alongside many of his guards until they capture Broomhilda as a hostage and threaten Django. Django surrenders, and they hang him upside down. Stephen confronts him, explaining that the white men decided not to kill or torture him, but to sell him to the mines in a distant place called Luke Wind. His jobs would be to shatter rocks in the mountain, with the consequence of losing his tongue if he spoke a word. When he breaks down, they hit him on the head with a hammer, ensuring they rid themselves of him, the harshest punishment imaginable. Django is sent to the mining area, where he meets Quentin, and concocts a story about coming to the plantation with a German to kill a gang called Smitty Bicall, showing them the reward notice in his pocket. Quentin and his gang buy into Django's tale, releasing him and giving him a gun, assuming he is going to kill the Bicall gang. Instead, Django kills Quentin and his gang members, returning to Candyland for his wife, and begins to eliminate Calvin's men. Amidst the chaos of Calvin's funeral, Django targets everyone one by one, relishing in injuring the black servant Stephen in the knee before allowing him to leave. In a splendid finale, Django watches the Candy estate explode with Stephen inside, finally reuniting with Broomhilda. They leave Candyland and set off on a new journey together. If you've reached so far in our video, you're officially awesome. Thanks for sticking around with Chat Craze. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and to leave a nice comment. Until next time.